We are back. Giants baseball, past, present, future. I'm Ralph Tyko of the Comfortably Zoned Radio Network, and the host of the show is Michael Duca, here with me today. How are you, sir?
I am well. How about yourself?
Good. You've got a project going today. You've got a game to do for MLB. Am I right?
That is true. I'm going to be, I'm a day late, as I usually am. I'm going to be backing up the Dodgers-Pirates game, which last night's was pretty interesting. I don't think today's can possibly compete.
Now, we've talked about what you do as an official scorer, but you're not scoring in this game. What do you do when you say backing up the Pirates game for we ignorant folks out there?
Well, if you own a smartphone, you absolutely have to have the MLB at-bat application. The app works on both. Oh, you do. I know you do. You listen to games from all over the country on it, don't you?
Oh, I'm blessed. If I had that as a kid, I never would have graduated high school. I'd have been up literally all night with every game. This technology far exceeds anything we dreamt about as kids, and not just in baseball, in all different levels of life and, medicine. It's great. It's great. And what do you do for them? What exactly?
All right. Well, when you look at the app, if you call up a game, as you know, Ralph, you have an option of listening to the radio. If you pay a small amount, I think it's $20 a year, you have an option of watching some video, watching the game on TV if there's a live look-in. But you also have the option of watching something called Game Day. And Game Day puts the game in front of you in an animation, if you will, pitch by pitch. Mm-hmm. There are actual live humans in the ballpark doing Game Day, and many times that human is me in San Francisco and Oakland, but also you can't have an application like that has to be essentially fail-safe when there's millions of people relying on it, and leave brand-new employees out there on an island by themselves. So for the first couple of years that people are working for us, more experienced operators are backing up the game, which means we're watching it off satellite with maybe a 7 or 8 second delay induced, so that we stay one pitch behind them, and we're actually scoring the game onto our laptops, which are not connected to the system. However, if the person on site gets into trouble or works himself into a cul-de-sac that we can't get out of very easily, then they can switch the game over to us. They just disconnect them from the server, connect us, and we pick up seamlessly and go forward. We also serve as an audit function. If somebody maybe calls a strike a swinging strike when it was a foul tip, or maybe misses the fact that a ball bounced in the dirt, we can keep track of those things, and they can get corrected as they go. So that's what backing up is.
What a tremendous amount of concentration that must take, just like being an official scorer.
It does. I have to be able to watch the game and score the game as though I were at the park, but I also have to watch what the other person is doing, make sure I stay behind them so that if they do create some kind of problem, when they connect to me, we connect back before the problem occurred, and it looks seamlessly like we're going forwards. And I have to kind of process that and make sure that what I saw is what they wrote, or what they entered.
Okay. Do you ever work a game where you are the official scorer and you're a backup for this as well?
Absolutely not.
Okay. You couldn't wear two hats.
That's prohibited by the commissioner's office. On days that we official score, technically you and I can't even do our show on days that I score, except for the fact that we tape this, and then you clean up all my language and correct all my mistakes before you post it, so it's not live.
No, I correct my mistakes. you don't make mistakes.
Well, that's a nice thing to tell people. Maybe someone will believe it if they don't know me.
Well, yeah, it's just you throw it out there, and sometimes the reputation is built for the wrong reasons. But to be honest with you, you're a pro. I mean, working with you is a privilege. I'm honored. Thank you, sir.
Well, and I'll send that right back to you. I would tend to say that it's a privilege just to be able to have the soapbox on which to pontificate from time to time.
I love having you do that. And what we're going to do, because we're limited by your upcoming event, we're limited in time, I want to get right to the subject. When we talked last week that we were going to talk about future Giants coming up, who's in the system. The number one guy that everybody talks about is, boy, the team's going to be this and the team's going to be that. That's going to be our leader, Christian Arroyo. Are they putting too much pressure on him, or does he put pressure on himself? Is he going to pan out?
Well, those are three different questions, and so we'll kind of attack them one at a time. Christian Arroyo is a 300-hitter career in the minor leagues, but only a 250 hitter in the major leagues. He's had 34 games with the Giants. This year, he's hitting 396 in the minor leagues. It's hard for me to imagine how how you can overrate someone doing that. However, the key issue here is that he's only played 59 games this year. He has been and continues to be on the disabled list. He's 22 years old, and he's got the versatility to perhaps even be a Ben Zobrist type player. And I think he's got the skill level as a hitter to be a breakout player for the team. The bigger question they have right now is, where are they going to put him? You know, they're going to let him develop in the minor leagues. The Giants like to have a player really, you know, and I hesitate to use this word, but it's a word they use. They like to have a player dominate at each level. You know, they like to have him come away from each level of development feeling like he was completely in charge of himself and his game at that level before they move him up.
Yeah, he's pushing the envelope, in other words, at each level, that he's almost forcing them with that criteria
the biggest
to move him up.
Said right now is keeping him healthy.
Yeah. That's a biggie, and that goes back to some players have injuries that affect, in other words, they have a left knee injury, they end up favoring it, and their right ankle goes bad. And then their right ankle goes bad, and their left hip goes bad, and that type of thing. And there are players that it's almost, injuries are almost contagious. They're given a bad rap of being brittle. Are his injuries related? Are they what they call freak injuries? Are they that aren't likely to reoccur? Are they hopefully not hamstring injuries, which linger and sometimes reoccur?
Mostly this year, it's been, I don't know if you can call them injuries that would recur. Jeff Bagwell suffered through a couple of these and started wearing special equipment for it. Arroyo's been hit by pitches twice this year that's knocked him out of the lineup. The second time it broke his hand, and so he's done for the year. But that's, it's a common injury, but it's not one that I would say is one that you need to worry about as being chronic. He broke it in July, and they said he'd be out for at least 2 months. And as you know, the minor league season ends in early September. And then you have the problem of maybe a player's ready to come back, but do you want to bring him straight to the major leagues with no rehab, with 2 months off without seeing live pitching? And there's no place for him to go in rehab. September is that month where everything's done at the major league level. Fall ball hasn't opened yet, and the minor leagues are shut down.
Even extended spring training is gone by then, I'm sure.
Yeah.
Okay. Anyone else who's more of a long shot that you could turn to and say, wow, this guy's coming along pretty well, making progress, may push for a roster spot next year?
Well, I don't know if it's going to be next year or not, but everybody seems to be looking towards Steven Duggar, who is a center fielder. They just moved him up to AAA Sacramento. He's played 2 games there. He's played. I'm looking here. He's really only played about 35 games so far this year. You know, he just started with the team. He's 23 years old, started out with a couple of games in the rookie league and then played some games in San Jose. He's hit close to 300 in his minor league career, 294 with an 811 OPS. So he's got doubles power more than home run power so far is what he's displayed at age 23. He's a left-handed hitter, which is generally what you wind up with at AT&T Park. I think one of the Giants' problems right now, if you look at them, everybody agrees that they need to do something to spiff up their outfield next year. And Jarrett Parker looks like he is trying his very best to play his way into winning the starter's role for next year, this year, and not having to go out and compete for it in spring training. Hunter Pence, we've talked about. He's got some time left on his contract. His hitting has picked up dramatically over the last couple of weeks, and he's beginning to look more like the Hunter Pence of old. But the hamstring issues, you just don't know how long it's going to take you. That may be through the off season before that's fully healed, and before we get a chance to really see what's going on there. The outfielders that are available in the off season are mostly left-handed, and the Giants' lineup right now is too heavily tilted towards left-handers. Lorenzo Cain's about the only right-handed hitter out there that they can look at for the outfield who's coming available. But guys like Jay Bruce and such are all left.
I hope they get Jay Bruce. He's really
well. It will be interesting. I've talked to front office people who don't want to be quoted on this, and they like Bruce as a hitter, and he obviously loves hitting at AT&T Park. But they are, they question his defense and they question his arm, and those two things play importantly in a ballpark that beats Power Alley.
And he's a better defensive outfielder than he's given credit for, and I don't know why he has such a soft market every way he went with the Mets. Didn't take much to get him. They couldn't really get anything for him in the off season. He had a very poor second half of the season with the Mets after they got him from Cincinnati. They couldn't get rid of him. They were forced to keep him. He turned out to be a very, very good ball player. Could even play a little first base in a pinch, and had to when Duda was down. So I think he takes good routes to balls. I don't know where his defensive where that reputation comes from. You've seen him obviously more than I have. Do you disagree? about his defense. Let's put it that way.
I don't have enough sample size to really be able to evaluate that, but I have not personally seen anything that would suggest to me that he's not at least a major league average outfielder, if not maybe a touch better. I think the concern that they may have is that they may want to move, their real problem is center field, Ralph, and
right.
I don't know. I don't know if Bruce doesn't have the range to be a center fielder at this point in his career. I don't think.
No, does not. Never did really.
And Span's hitting well right now, but for whatever reason, the feeling is that he's just not up to the job in center field defensively. And if you move him to left field, I don't know that Parker's a center fielder. Hunter Pence has never played center field, or at least hasn't played it for a very long time. I just, again, I don't know. I don't know if the unorthodox throwing motion that he has due to a childhood injury to his shoulder, I don't know if that would play well in center field. I mean, he goes out into Triples Alley and makes plays now, so you would have to say that it's something that they might think about. But, for whatever reason, despite his speed, nobody has ever talked about Pence as a possible center fielder.
No. Boy, is he a hustler, though. He goes balls to the wall on every play. Gotta love that.
Yeah, I think the phrase you're looking for is he plays the game the right way.
That's a better phrase. Thank you, sir. I appreciate that. You're pressed for time, so we're gonna kind of end it. I wish you luck doing your thing today. I hope you have a good game, a good call, as they say.
Well, thank you. I appreciate that, and maybe next week we can lead off with a little bit more of this. We could talk a little bit about the pitching that the Giants have in the minor leagues and see whether there's something going on down there. I'd love to talk a little bit about Tyler Beede in particular.
Okay. Before I let you go, I just want to get an overview. Let's face it, the Giants are playing much, much better ball in the last 25, 30 days than they have all year. What do you attribute that to? Because they're making it fun to watch the team again, which is nice.
Well, I think you have to attribute at least some of that to the emergence of Jarrett Parker, to his return from the disabled list. If you have a regular left fielder that you're running out there, if you're not running your fifth outfielder out there to start in left field every day and scrambling to figure out who's on your bench, they had so many dead spots in the lineup going in. Brandon Crawford was hitting in the 220s, and his hitting has picked up significantly. Pence was injured. He's back, and his hitting has picked up significantly. Denard Span is on a hot streak. And, we've always said not hitting is contagious and hitting is contagious. And right now they are hitting. They've gotten some decent pitching over the last month, too. The bullpen has stabilized and settled down. Lots of people.
Kane helps them tremendously in the bullpen.
He does. And I think I was the lone voice in the wilderness a year ago saying they ought to try him at closer a year ago when they were searching for a closer desperately. He's still got the ability to throw 91 or 92 to a few hitters, but not to an entire lineup. And he's always been very successful the first time through the lineup, and then much more hittable the second time through the lineup. The hitters seem to be able to make the adjustments better than he does at this point in his career. All of those things just scream bullpen. But if you look at the Giants,
but I want to ask you: does he have the kind of arm that can come back the next day if necessary?
That we don't really know until we try it. He's always been a workhorse. He's always been able to give you 200-plus innings. And I think, if he were to go into spring training knowing that he would, preparing his arm to pitch 3 consecutive days, I think he probably does. But again, you don't know this until you see it. The other thing, when we talk about the bullpen, as much as Kane has added to it, you really cannot understate the importance of Sam Dyson to this team. They literally picked him up off the garbage heap. The Rangers are paying his salary just like the Red Sox are paying Pablo Sandoval's salary. And if you look at the Giants bullpen that everybody was really, really concerned about for the first several months of the season, you look at it for next year and you've got Will Smith, Sam Dyson, Mark Melancon, and, even Hunter Strickland. I mean, that's 4 guys that are rock solid in the 7, 8, 9 mix. You've got a 6-inning game next year. And that's a whole different world, I think, than what the Giants were looking at early this year, where your starters aren't ready to go 7 or 8 innings early in the year, and your bullpen is ready to throw arson on the flames. It's a whole different thing. Your starters try to do more than they can, and it's just if you can work that game into a 6-inning game and your starters know how to pace themselves, even though they're capable of going 7 or 8, and they might, they also know that they don't have to hold back that second and third time through the lineup because they've got guys behind them who are going to preserve whatever they've given them.
Right. Bochy and Rags, they'll be back?
Probably.
Okay.
There are no certainties in this business. I think if the team continues to play above 500 for the rest of the season, particularly in the West where you're likely to be seeing 3 of the 4 teams ahead of you make the playoffs, if they play above 500 ball, I think management looks on that favorably. If they continue to struggle and wind up losing 100 games, there's really no telling what the partners group is going to do. They may look at that and say, there's nothing here that suggests to us that we're not going to see that again next year, and we can't afford to see that next year, so we got to make changes.
Gotcha. Hey, you've given us an up-to-the-date analyzation of your Giants, my Giants. Boy, I miss them in New York. I miss my youth because when they were in New York, I was a kid. People think, well, I miss this and that. No, they just miss them being younger, themselves being younger. I think that's what nostalgia is all about. But we have a fun, interesting team to follow, Michael Duca. Thank you.
We do. And, remember when you were a kid running around the streets of New York City, there was another young man up near Fordham who was running around the streets of New York City also, who was quite the Giants fan, and still is, and his name was Vin Scully.
Right. He was a Mel Ott fan, and there were some pictures of him when the Giants were nice enough to bring him up on that his last go-around last year. And they brought him to San Francisco, and there were some pictures of him walking around the promenade at AT&T, and just looking at the old, as the Giants do, they honor the New York Giants, which is more than I can say for the Mets, honoring their former players. They have a statue of Jackie Robinson in the promenade, but they don't have a Tom Seaver. They don't have a Gil Hodges, that type of thing. The Giants honor what was their team, the New York Giants. It's all one big franchise. And the look in Vin Scully's eye when he was going over, walking around, is beautiful. He was a Giant. Although, wow, what an announcer. How he's missed. What can I say?
Yeah, when I was a young man, I listened to him on the radio. I mean, I was a Giants fan living in Southern California, and the best I could get was Vin Scully. But boy, that was the best you could get. I've never heard anybody else be able to.
You mentioned that name last week, and I didn't pick up on it. Faked you out of the popcorn machine.
Yes, indeed. Chicky Baby going left to right across your dial.
Yes.
The thing that Scully did, not just better than anybody else, but to the exclusion, I think, of anyone else. Maybe Bob Costas has managed to do this once or twice, but Scully could seamlessly drop Shakespeare into a baseball situation. And that to me was always amazing. I mean, most people probably just let it go by or lived under had a Hopper's rubric. To me, there were only ever two Willies, Mays and Shakespeare. But Vinny was absolutely great at being able to put a game and a game situation into perspective. And that's something that you don't see enough of in today's announcers. He came up in a time before television was predominant, and he learned how to borrow another one of Chick's phrases, give you a bird's eye view of what was going on in front of him so that it felt like it was going on in front of you.
Michael, did Chick ever do any other sports besides basketball? I was up here in Northern California, or in his heyday, so I didn't get to hear him as much. You were down in L.A. Was there? Did he off season anything?
I'm not sure. Let me very quickly go to the tape here and see if I can look him up.
Well, another guy you got to put classified with somebody who could talk baseball with Shakespeare. That was Bill King. He was a Renaissance man as well as a baseball announcer. And a lot of baseball announcers do pick up history. They go to different towns and they go to museums and they become erudite and educated, and they pass that on through their broadcasts, and it makes it much more interesting. You can only talk balls and strikes for X amount of time on the air without bringing life in or whatever. And Vin could do it. Bill King could do it.
Right.
And
Chicky's non-Laker work is absolutely fascinating. Actually, it starts out that he was the longtime host of Bowling for Dollars from 1972 to 78. He called closed-circuit broadcasts of the first Ali Frazier fight. Did boxing commentary at the Forum. He covered the U.S. Open golf tournament from 57 to 64. He announced USC football and basketball from 56 to 61. Served as play-by-play broadcaster for USC football games on tape-delayed syndicated broadcasts in 1973. Called UNLV basketball games with Ross Porter from 1986 to 1990. And did play-by-play for USA men's basketball from the Barcelona Olympics. Plus, he was in about 10 movies.
Very, very versatile. Very versatile.
Movies or TV shows, yeah. And actually, here you go. Here's the one that you probably will most appreciate, Ralph, knowing you, and probably didn't know. At the 4-minute mark of the song Don't Leave Me Now, on Pink Floyd's The Wall, you can hear Chick Hearn in the background.
Really?
Yep.
Whoa. The Wall. Kindly judge your honor. Showing feelings of an almost human nature. The Wall. Chick Hearn's on The Wall. Whoa. Incredible.
Yeah, remember there's
who
a
mentioned
scene there
somebody
where,
last week, and I can't think of it, who announced golf on the radio.
Oh,
What's
yes.
that?
It was Lon Simmons. Lon Simmons announced
Okay.
calls on the radio.
I would have loved to have heard that. Somewhere there's probably a tape in some archive of Lon doing golf. Next week we'll talk a little bit about, because when I go from name to name, Lon's best friend on the Giants was probably Willie McCovey. Am I right?
Yes. And certainly the man for whom he had the most respect and affection.
He needs an entire show dedicated to him, Willie Mack.
Well, I can certainly contribute to that. I remember lying on my floor in Sacramento on KFBK, listening to this young rookie hit at Connie Mack Stadium and get 4 hits off Robin Roberts in his first ever game. So we can chat about that a little.
1959. Wow. And here's an interesting point. Willie McCovey, after getting off to this terrific start, kind of faltered a little bit, and the Giants, or back in the day, the Giants optioned him out to Phoenix, worked with our old friend Hank Sauer, and came back strong. So that's something
I'd say he came back strong.
Yes,
definitely.
Did I understate that just a tad?
Well, he came back strong and came all the way back to Cooperstown.
Right. Okay. That's coming back real strong. Thank you, Michael. We'll talk next week, and it'll be dedicated to Willie Mack. I'll love doing that.
I'll look forward to it all week. Thank you, Ralph.
All right. Thanks, my friend. And listening audience, I implore you to keep on keeping on. We want you back next week. Adios, everybody. And thank you, Michael.